For today's video, I'm going to do a quick mini review of the 6 books we've read for the book club that I run on a monthly basis. I thought I'd do mini reviews and then put links to the actual replays of the live reviews I did if you want to go and watch a longer in-depth chat about it. I will be doing the live reviews monthly on this channel from now on. So if you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is Books with Karen and I'm Karen, and if you've been here before, then thanks so much for coming back. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel and you do like to watch things that are just all about books, then it would be lovely if you could hit the subscribe button and maybe hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I put a new video up, which is going to be at least once a week. So when I read a book, I usually do a page in my book journal just to write a short review of what I thought of the book, what it was about, just to jog my memory in case I can't remember what I'm talking about when it comes to it. So for my journal, I just use this little notebook. This is my own artwork, and I had these books published on Amazon. I will put links to them in the description box below if you'd like to go over and have a look. I've got 4 of them. I've also got a word search book on Amazon as well, so if you wanted to look at those you can, but there's no obligation obviously. I just use this book as my book journal. It's just an ordinary plain lined book, but I find it quite easy to use this to do that in. So the first book we read was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I don't do anything elaborate. I put the title, I put how many stars, and I usually put a list of the characters and then just write my own thoughts on the book. So the first one is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So this book is about a schoolgirl, Andy Bell, who was murdered 5 years previously to the story starting, and her boyfriend Sal Singh was accused of the murder but had apparently committed suicide. Now Pippa, who the book follows, I think she's about 17, 18, and she has decided that she wants to write her final year project on this murder. So she wants to do some investigating and find out what really happened. She doesn't believe that Sal Singh murdered Andy Bell. So in a nutshell, the book is about Pippa's journey of finding out what happened. She meets up with Sal's brother and they investigate together to solve the murder. I did like this book. I gave it 4 stars. I liked the way it was written. It was written in ordinary chapters as well as some logs that she writes as she interviews people, so there's a lot of that in it. You can see her journal entries of things she's written down, but it also has just ordinary chapters in it as well, and I really did enjoy the book. I tried to watch the TV series of it as well and I just couldn't get into it, but the book was a definite page turner, and like I say, I gave that 4 stars. So the second book our book club read was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And The Nightingale is set in 1942, so during World War II in France, and it follows a family, Isabelle Vian, her daughter, her husband, and what happens to them during the Germans' occupation of France during World War II. Vian stays at home in her village when her husband goes off to war to look after her daughter. Isabel actually goes to work with the resistance to help get soldiers out of France. Vian has to take in a German officer to live in her house. None of this was anything I'd ever thought about before, about how the occupation of France by the Germans actually affected people during the war. I have heard that there are some flaws in the historical facts in this book, but this didn't really detract from the storyline to me. I thought it was a really well written book. I thought the characters were well drawn. It was heartbreaking to read. There were parts of it where I absolutely sobbed, but I did feel it was a book that I was pleased I'd read, because I hadn't really known much about that period of history in France, so it was interesting to read about that. I think I would have liked to hear more about Isabel's involvement with the resistance. I think that would have been good. It felt like the story was more focused on Vianne and what she had to go through, but it would have been good to hear more about Isabel's story as well. But I would read more Kristen Hanna books. Yeah, it definitely prompted me to want to do that, and I did give this 4 stars. So the third book we read was The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. I actually read this on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical book. And it is basically about the search for this bookshop that has been lost. There hasn't been a book written about the bookshop, which is how people know about it. And it was supposed to be a magical place where a lady called Opaline ran it. I think it was in the 1920s. And the book follows Opaline's story and then jumps forward to follow Martha's story, who was left an abusive marriage and goes to stay in this bed and breakfast type place with an old lady called Madame Bowden, and she lives in Martha lives in the room in the basement, and bit by bit the room starts to kind of take on a life of its own. It develops branches of a tree and kind of grows from there. And Martha and a guy she meets called Henry are very interested in finding the history of this lost bookshop, which is supposed to be next door to where Martha is living, but nobody knows what happened to it. It just disappears, and the story is basically them trying to find this bookshop and why it's so important to everybody. Now, I did like the characters. I especially liked the character of Madame Bowden. I won't tell you the twist on it because there is a one. I did find there was too many characters in this book, too many kind of threads of the storyline, and there was definitely a few flaws in it. But I did give it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy the book. It was magical, a bit of a fantasy kind of story. I liked the backstory of Opaline, but I wish again that had been more fleshed out, a bit like in the Nightingale. I would have liked to find out more about Opaline. There was quite a few quotes from this book that I really liked. One of them was, "The memories of buildings, the walls are infused with them. They never forget what we as mere mortals misplace. And choosing not to do something is still a choice." So there was lots of quotes in here that I did like, and it made me want to read some more books by Evie Woods as well. So even though it was slightly flawed in the way it was told, there was some threads I didn't feel like they were finished. I did like the characters, especially Opaline, and overall I enjoyed the story. And actually one of the quotes in it was, "Some things are meant to be flawed, therein lies the beauty." So there you go. So the 4th book we read was The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and this is a murder mystery book, but it's kind of written in a different way. It's written all in emails sent to and from the group of characters within the book. It mainly follows a woman called Isabel, who is part of an AMDRAM, an amateur dramatic theatre group, and somebody has been murdered, and you don't really find out who has been murdered until fairly near the end, and you don't know who's done it. And again, there are twists in this, but I really did like the way the book was written in the email. I found it easy to read. It was quick to read it, so it didn't feel like it was chapters because it was just all short emails. I found the ending a bit unbelievable. I did give this book a 4 star, but on hindsight, I think 3.5 may be more appropriate for it. There was some longer correspondence at the end, which I felt was a little bit jarring from the shorter emails that I had been reading. It kind of felt like 2 bits of a book, and I did find it difficult to switch between them. I did guess some of the twists, but some of them I didn't guess. And like I say, I found the ending a little bit unbelievable, but I did like a lot of the characters, although I felt some of them again could have been brought out a little bit more. But yeah, I have actually got another one of Janice Hallett's book to read.
I think it's called The Twyford Code. So I am looking forward to reading that. But the appeal, it says 1 murder, 15 suspects. Can you uncover the truth? So you can try and solve the murder as you're going through it as well. Yeah, I enjoyed it. So 3.5 stars rather than 4. The book we read for January's book club was called The Rainfall Market, and that was by Yu Yong Kwang. Excuse me if I've mispronounced that name. And this is basically about a young girl. I think it's set in Korea. It's about a young girl who her life is quite, it's a little bit sad. She's lost her father, her sister's disappeared. Her and her mother don't have a lot of money, and she wishes she had a different life. And she knows about this fantasy thing called the Rainfall Market that appears during the rainy season in Korea. And if you can get a ticket for that, you can go to the Rainfall Market and you can choose a different life. So you can kind of rewrite your life into something you want. And basically she goes through all these different scenarios of different lives once she gets to the Rainfall Market, and none of them seem to be what she wants. It is definitely a fantasy novel. It isn't quite what I was expecting it to be. I did think it was written more with maybe children in mind. It had that kind of Harry Potter feel to it. It also had a little bit of a feel of The Midnight Library, if you've read that. But yeah, it was a nice read. It was fairly easy read. I don't know if it was something I would have chosen for myself. It was one of the book club books that somebody else had picked to put on the list. But yeah, the main character is called Seren, and she also is given this magical cat that isn't really a cat called Isha that helps her on her journey to try and find the different life she might want. I think the moral of the story was, the grass isn't always greener, and kind of cherish what you've already got. And again, it had some nice quotes in it. One of the quotes that I picked out from it was, "It's never too late to start on your dreams. The present is the best time to launch yourself forward." Yeah, I quite enjoyed doing the journal spread for that. I had some stickers that felt quite relevant to what I was writing about. I gave this 3 stars. It just wasn't what I was expecting it to be, and I did feel, even though some of the lives she was choosing to look at for herself were more of an adult nature, I did feel like it was written more for children, but there have been people who've disagreed with us on that. The book we read in February was called The Cottage by Lisa Stone. I did give this 3.5 stars. This book is definitely not what I was expecting. It's about a woman called Jan who she's broken up with a live-in boyfriend of about 5 years, and she goes and rents a cottage that is on the outskirts of a wood in a little village. She's going to write a book, but then some strange things start happening. There's taps on the window, and she feels like people are watching her, and there's people outside, and it's quite eerie. There's also a dog that's living in the cottage with her, that the person who's renting the cottage out has decided that anybody who rents it has to take the dog, which was a bit strange. So you feel like this book is a kind of supernatural, or maybe somebody's going to get murdered. The blurb on it just says, after losing her job and boyfriend, Jan is desperate for a fresh start, so jumps at the chance of a secluded cottage. Very quickly, things take a dark turn. Jan hears strange noises, taps at the window. Something or someone is out there. I'm not going to spoil this for anybody who hasn't read it, but the subject matter of the book could be a little bit triggering for some people. If you've lost a baby or anything like that. The topic of the book is definitely not what I was expecting. I did enjoy it. I've given it 3.5 stars. It kind of suspends belief a little bit in parts of it. There are some things in the plot you think, really? I don't think so. It was a little bit hard to believe. And one of the quotes that I took from that is, there was something outside. There most definitely was something outside. On the whole, I did enjoy it, but definitely some flaws in it. And I did read Jan. Jan's supposed to be in her 30s, and when I read it, I actually thought she was more like in her 50s. so I'm not sure why that was. But yeah, definitely definitely interested. If you have read The Cottage, let us know what you thought in the comments below. So each of those books are books that we have chosen for our monthly book club, and I have done live book reviews on. Sometimes I have other people on with me on the live book reviews. If you want to watch the replays of the live reviews, I will put links to them. I'll put links to the playlist up here, and maybe link to them in the description box below if you want. They're roughly around 30 to 45 minutes long. So if you wanted to go and get a more in-depth review of the book and my thoughts on it and other people's thoughts on it, then you can go and watch that. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again soon with another book related video. So hope you enjoyed this one. Bye for now.